Hi, I want to welcome you back to Undertaking Cinema. Today we're going to be talking about lenses, particularly lenses for people who are on a budget. It's interesting, when I got into film back in the 1980s, um, there was still the shadow of Citizen Kane, the Orson Welles masterpiece. And it made me think a lot about how things have changed over time. Back then, what people were chasing was the deep focus, so that you'd have like something very close in focus and something very far away in focus, which back in the film era, this was very difficult to do. Now, I think that have walked away from that because of cell phones and cameras with very small image sensors and so forth. And so people have now been chasing like the out of focus background and so forth. Um, so it's kind of interesting how things changed like that, but got me thinking a lot about lenses. And I wanted to go through a few lenses that I found that I like a lot. And they are really handy for people who are on a budget. Now, the first one I want to talk about is the Nikon lenses. Now, if you're not familiar with Nikon, they were a camera manufacturer, still are. Of course, they don't make film cameras anymore, but they do make digital cameras. Now, the old lenses, which like this one here, were completely manual in the 60s and 70s and 80s. These were considered the finest lenses made, with the exception of maybe some of the Zeiss lenses. So today, these are a bargain because nobody talks about these, and this is like one of the finest lenses ever. Um, Now, this particular one I like a lot. This is kind of a sleeper. It's an 85 millimeter um, f1.8, and it's an AIS lens. Now, let me talk briefly about AIS versus AI. You've probably heard of these terms. Uh, Non-AI was the first version of Nikon lenses that went on the really early cameras. And then they came out with the AI version, which means auto-indexing is what it means. It just means that when you put the lens on the camera, it knows what the f-stop is. Um, and then they came up with the AIS. Here's a safety tip. Do not pay more for an S version, AIS, over an AI, because they're exactly the same. The only difference between the S is how it interfaces with a different camera, which has nothing to do with anything you're going to deal with. This one here I've converted to using it for cinema. I put a focus gear on it, and then also it's got a declicked aperture. And the reason you want to declick apertures is so that, like, if you're shooting something where somebody's coming in from outside and they walk inside, you want to be able to change the aperture without the clicking going and making a funny visual. Anyway, so that's the deal here. So I would really look into these because these are not expensive. The only really expensive ones, there's like I think a 58 millimeter Noctor or something like that, which is an f1.2, and that's just crazy amounts of money, like 5 grand or something. But for the most part, these goes for like 150, $200, and that's really quite a good deal. There's a couple I want to show you. Here's a 35 millimeter two. Actually, I'm sorry, this is the wrong one. There it is, the 35 millimeter f2. And if you don't know what the difference between f and a t-stop, modern lenses are marked in t-stops. The difference is f-stop is actually just a mathematical formula. T-stops are um, actual measurements of the light transmitted through the lens. So t-stop is more accurate. But you can usually figure that the difference between f-stop and t-stop is maybe half a stop or something. Anyway, 35 millimeter f2, this is a great lens. They also made a 35 millimeter 1.4, which is highly sought after and very expensive. And frankly, I wouldn't buy it because this is a really good lens. In fact, I think this is a sharper lens. Um, this is the sleeper of all sleepers. This is a 55 millimeter micro. When I mean micro, I mean it'll focus down like, you know, right down to the front of the lens practically. and you can get really great shots if you're shooting miniatures or anything. And that's actually a good, just a general lens. This is brutally sharp. Do not use this on your girlfriend. But this is a sleeper, and you don't pay much for these. There's like $100. You know, I mean, how can you not buy that? Anyway, so that's my rant about Nikon lenses. I'm going to do a couple other things. Here's a very quick thing on. You've probably heard of Soviet lenses, the old Russian lenses. This one here is 135 millimeter f4, and this delivers really beautiful images. And what I like about them is a lot of these lenses, they're not so contrasty as to be kind of like harsh. They have a kind of a dreamy quality to them, and that's what I like about them. Anyway, so check those out. Again, now these, all the Russian lenses, they produced in huge numbers. I mean, I'm talking millions. So you don't pay a lot of money for these. Don't pay, like this lens, I wouldn't pay over like $125 for it or something like that. It's just very sharp. That's a 35 millimeter f4. I like the chrome version. You want to go modern and you need like the crisp, sort of sci-fi look, then this is a great bargain. This is the Sigma 18 to 35, which was a still camera lens, but it's rehoused by a company called Cinematics, and they do a wonderful job. It's very beefy. This is a 95 millimeter front, but what they've done is they've made it, it's not autofocus anymore. You're able to manually focus, which is what you want to do if you're shooting cinema, and also the iris is mechanical now. You don't control it with the camera, this is also great. The only downside I would say is that the contacts on the back here no longer give you metadata, which is kind of sad, but it may have been something that they've corrected now. So I don't know. I bought this a couple years ago, but I love this lens. And if you want something that's really clinically sharp or really crisp and really does a good job, this is almost like a prime. It's like a variable prime rather than a zoom lens. But the focal length being 18 to 35, it covers like, you got like an 18 and a 20 and a 24 and a 28 and a 35. So it really covers like 4 lenses. And this, you can buy the lens complete, or you can send your lens in to have them redo it. And it's if you just buy it from them, I think it's about $1,500 for this. And it's great. This is a great bargain. Anyway, so that's my rant on lenses today. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.